with DJ Stanek. DJ leads our youth ministry, and you guys are doing the same psalm that we are on Sunday.
Yeah.
You're doing that with the youth ministry, right?
Yes, we are. Yeah, it's been really cool. Just walking through Psalms and even talking about spiritual disciplines and what that looks like in a life of a student in middle school and high school. It's been really cool.
Yeah, I actually relate to the Psalms a lot because I love the raw emotion of it,
Yes.
and really you've got these people letting it out, and it's great.
Yeah, especially 13, which is a lot to cry time.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Lament, right?
Yeah.
Psalm 13 is lament. I was so amazed when I discovered how many Psalms of lament there are. And so I just wanted to ask you, like, as you've been studying this and thinking about lament, where does that hit you? Do you lament a lot? Is this something that you've exercised this discipline, or no? Where does it hit you?
Yeah, I think that I've practiced lament when seasons call for it.
Yeah.
So when a season comes up where there's a lot of anguish or even anger or just like deep and raw emotions of pain and sadness, I'll practice this pretty well.
Yeah.
But even the times of joy when I have small lament moments, I guess, small moments of grief, I kind of ignore them and brush them aside. And so this past week, as I've been reading through it, I've been considering, what am I lamenting right now?
Yeah.
So it's not a discipline that I have, but more so a seasonal practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. I think, just very situationally, it just comes out because the pressure of that grief or pain is there. And so, but the discipline of stepping into it, even in seasons where my life is fine.
Yeah.
Where I think you can even see kind of in our church, we don't do it a whole lot. And I'm starting to think that we need to be more conscientious of this discipline of lament to get in touch with the heart of God.
I think there's little moments every day that we experience that are saddening, and they're small, and we brush them off to go, oh, that's not a big deal. But our heart says different. Like our emotions say differently because we're feeling the sadness, but brushing it away. I think that God is actually cluing us in to say, hey, this is a moment of loss for you. Let's take a second to step into some of the mess and the muck and mire in that.
Yeah. Even those little moments where you see, it's all around us. There's people who are in pain and suffering and displaced all around us. Sometimes that's overwhelming, and automatically as Christians I think we should have this reflex of I want to be able to help and do something, and if we can in that moment, we should.
Right.
But I find that sometimes or often I don't necessarily just go to lament like, this is terrible, God, that this is the world is this way.
Lament, and that's really good that we not even things that are happening to us necessarily, but like personal, but more of the macro level where it's happening to the world, where the universe may be in turmoil, like this season, where we can lament with others, even if it's not happening personally.
Yeah. So from your experience, like personally, when we talk about lament, in Psalm 13, David doesn't ask to be removed from the situation. Mm-hmm. He just pleads with God to lighten his eyes, that he doesn't want to feel this way anymore. And he does want justice and comfort from the Lord. How does that hit you? Like, I was really struck by that, I think a lot of times when the situational grief hits and I just naturally lament, I tend to want to be like, God, would you take this away?
Yeah.
How does that hit you?
Yeah, I feel like at times when I feel the situational lament, I feel like I hit the basement and like I fall through the floor and hit the basement. I'm like, Lord, help me out of here.
Yeah.
I want to be on the top floor with you again. And I have this like pull me out, like a reaching hand up. Instead of allowing the Lord to sit with me in the mess, in the basement a little bit. And so that calls me out of something as well, where God is in the mess.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't acknowledge that, but I have a heart to be with the Lord in the mess. But sometimes when the mess happens, I want out of it. I want to be cleaned up as fast as possible.
Yeah. There are some traditions, church traditions and people groups that do lament really well. And it's often people who have it themselves or come from a history of pain and grief. But then there's also groups, and I think I'm into this group, where I haven't experienced a whole lot of that kind of pain and grief. And so the tradition that I've grown up in, much of the evangelical church, we don't lament real well. Mm-hmm. Have you given that any thought? Like, why do you think that is, that we don't really want to lament, we don't want to go there?
Yeah, I think that, at least the culture and the world that we live in crying and sadness is a weakness.
Yeah.
I think that's really conveyed often is that like, you hear this a lot in like sports as like, in the movie A League of Their Own,
Yeah.
like Tom Hanks is going
Yeah.
like, there's no crying in baseball.
Yeah.
Like this, it's funny, but it's also part of our culture as well, where
that's
we
true.
are like, if you're crying, like you're not strong. But we see from David that crying is strength. But I think that our culture really believes in this. If you were sad or feeling pain, that you are weak. And I think that's super untrue, but I think it's what we live in.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things I shared a little bit Sunday morning was this, I just don't would ever really want to choose to be sad.
Yeah.
I'd rather be happy. I'm
sure.
a happy, fun guy, and let's party, and let's have a good time, and let's rejoice, let's praise God. But it's just a little counterintuitive for me to step into that mourning or that lament. But man, I'm just really, my heart's been convicted this week as I've been studying lament and realizing that for me personally, and I think there's more room for us as a church and a people of God to lament more with the purpose of closeness with God and understanding God's heart towards sin and suffering.
Yeah, I've personally, so this is maybe even a question for you. I've personally been feeling like this week as I was coming up for kind of asking the question, like, what is my how long?
Yeah.
How long, O Lord, blank? I was asking, how long, O Lord, will I feel distant from you? And so like, as I even asked the question, this may not be a question but a statement, but as I asked the question, like, how long, O Lord, must I be far from you?
Yeah.
Like, in asking that question, how do you think that I can then, like, or we as a people, can make that move then to be close to God and asking how long will I feel distant for those feeling like an emotional or spiritual distance from the Lord?
Yeah, that's good. That's a great question to ask. How long, oh Lord? I think for me, one of them situational, and honestly, it's this pandemic and these quarantine. Like, how long, oh Lord, is this going to go on? It makes me feel, like almost a little inadequate as a leader on our leadership team to not know, like, how do we prepare and how do we guide through this? And and even my, personally wrestling with certain insecurities. How long, God, is this still gonna be something that I have to battle and wrestle with? And that's, I can relate to Paul even, who had this thorn in the flesh, so we don't know what it was necessarily, but I think he pleaded with God. He says 3 times, and God said, my grace is sufficient for you.
Yeah.
That there's strength in weakness and suffering. And gosh, that's hard to hear. But I think that's a great question. I think it's a question we ought to end with in this time that you posed is, what's your how long, O Lord?
Yeah.
And so I just ask you guys to consider that. Like right now, fill in that blank. Nothing's too big or too small. But what is that for you? How long, O Lord, blank? And then take that to God. And in this prayer of lament and seek his heart for you and for the situation that you're in. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you guys.